And I think that's unfortunate because this guy has done nothing but kept his team in position to not only compete for Super Bowls, though they hadn't been one, I get it, but to be relevant. Finally they got some help for him in the running game because the last few years, this guy's played quarterback, running back. He's had to be clutch in certain moments, all the things that you ask a franchise quarterback to do. But here's the other part that when I look at the trial, because to me, we don't like to say this a lot of the times, but if we're honest, Cam Newton had way less talent and got to a Super Bowl. Now that his career fizzled out a lot quicker, and that's what happens with guys that are big and strong, like Cam and like Josh Allen and like Steve McNair, the late Steve McNair. May he rest in peace. Those kind of quarterbacks, Dante Culpepper. Guys that are big and strong, and they can carry a team with their arms and their legs. And instead of getting 15 or 18 years out of them, you get a good 9 or 10 or 11, kind of like Russell Wilson, right? You've gotten that much out of him, and now we're asking these questions about whether they still can play or not. And I'm not saying Josh Allen is teeter-tottering on that level, but that window, because we all know that whether it's the NBA, whether it's MLB, whether it's NFL, there is a championship window that sometimes begins to close because you lose these types of games. And I'm not going to sit here and say that this is an inexcusable loss. There are certain parts of me that want to say that, but when I teeter-totter over to the tribulations, when I look at the things that Josh Allen can't control, he couldn't control for most of the year. He had a shiesty, or shiesty is not the right word. He had a really subpar offensive coordinator who put him in position to really throw the ball and turn the football over. And at the right time of the season, Ken Dorsey, and I never advocate for guys getting fired, but at this level, where performance is definitely construed and misconstrued, and you look at the new coordinator that took over, Josh Allen got better. The team got better. So you would think that they were really poised to take the next step, and especially against Kansas City. Because let's be honest, Kansas City hadn't looked like the Kansas City of old all year. Their receivers dropped balls. Now, their defense had gotten better. We've seen in years past, the defense was just good enough, and the offense had to be great because of what Tyreek Hill brought to the table and what Kelsey brought to the table, and Juju Smith and all those kind of guys that they've had to kind of fill in to make the receiving core be what it was. Because that first year that Mahomes started, he threw for 50 touchdowns and ran away with the MVP and even went to a Super Bowl, right? So from that perspective, when you understand what this really means from a standpoint of looking at a star quarterback like Josh and asking the question of, or are we expecting too much? The answer is no. Can we be a little bit more, or at least are we a little bit more reactive than analytical? Absolutely. But here's the truth. When we talk about fan bases, when we talk about, especially with Kansas City being vulnerable, this was the best time for that window, because Mahomes was not the same guy, and not because he's not great and he's lost a step. Because a lot of people have been prophesying that too. When Justin Herbert first started to come on that second year, I heard several national columnists and commentators say things about, maybe Mahomes has finally got some competition in the division, and he's still at the top of the division, right? He's still doing what he's always done from day one, right? When he was first drafted and sat behind Alex Smith, and the coaches, mainly Andy Reid, had the courage to say, you know what? We moved up in the draft to take this guy and put him in that position. This was the year, though, because when you go to 6 straight AFC championship games, when you've had long playoff runs, when you've been nicked up, and you're talking about playing not 18 games a year now, we're talking about at least 21 to 22 games a year, and then all the offseason preparation, that window for them has been very open, at least from a standpoint of what you see with the results. But when you look at, Bills Mafia and the Bills, the Buffalo Bills, man, this team has been hungry. They've been starving for a championship. And I saw, look, when you pan the camera, remember a couple years ago when the Cowboys lost in the playoffs? and they panned the crowd, and you saw the sister was sitting there like, that look, sorry. And I know we'll have some of our white brothers and sisters that have watched the show, but there's something about a sister that when she is perturbed, when she's upset, that look on her face to let you know that things are not okay. Look, you can read the tea leaves, and you looked at other fans, of course, but that was, and of course, Stephen A. trolled. I mean, the ultimate troll of from a journalistic standpoint and a fan base, right? But then I saw the same kind of energy with Buffalo. I saw several grown men crying. I'm talking about boohoo crying, like somebody took their bike, like somebody took their lunch money. I mean, it was like their mama died, their grandmama died, their pet died, their wife just left them, girl just cheated on them. You name any reference or analogy I could throw in right there. I actually saw it when the camera panned into the stands. That's why, sidebar, that's why I still believe that fandom is for suckers. I really believe that. Yeah, I mean, in a previous stop of my podcasting years, the sports critic, I really believed it. Because the emotional capital that you spend year after year, this is going to be our year. The Cowboys fan base, they're always talking about their year, and it's their year, and they're decreeing and declaring they got lucky rabbit's feet. Well, this is a Christian show. They probably go on a fast, right? They probably do it. They may sow an extra offering to their favorite preacher just to say, Lord, I really believe this is going to be the Cowboys' year. I believe that some people do that. Listen to your sports pastor for just a second, because when you understand that camera pan and you saw those people, I'm talking about literally men crying about this loss. And let me commend Josh Allen here, because I think a lot of times I've seen people lose, critical games like this in the playoffs, and they pass blame. They're frustrated, and they're visibly frustrated, rightfully so. I think Josh Allen handled this about as good as you can handle it, but here's the truth. That throw in the end zone, being a little bit more aggressive in certain spots, right? Picking those spots. There were some throws that he did miss. He missed more than the throw in the back of the end zone, right? I think that the game plan was great. I think his coach kind of failed him with that fake punt. Why do that? Why? Or going for it on 4th and 5, in your own territory. Those things really make it hard for you if you are trying to get over the hump. If you're trying to get this franchise somewhere that it had been in over 30 years. Back in 1993, during that playoff run, Frank Reich, who was a backup quarterback at the time, but now who's got into coaching, Jim Kelly was hurt that game, and they was down to the Orleans 35-3, came all the way back to get to the AFC Championship game and go on to win the AFC Championship to get to yet another Super Bowl, right? And I think that maybe, I don't know if this franchise is cursed or snake bitten. I've seen that on NFL Network. They come up with these little top 10 lists, and they had a list called the top 10 snake bitten franchises back in the day. I don't know what it is. But the Bills, I don't know who they made mad in the sports world. I don't know if God is mad with him. I know Jim Kelly got baptized not long ago, but he ain't been the quarterback in a long time. I don't know what it is. I don't know if Josh needs to get baptized. Maybe he's a Christian. I don't know. I'm being facetious when I say this, but man, it was heartbreaking to watch that fan base, to see Josh take those lumps. And here's what I commend him for. Because as a superstar, and he's still a superstar, I don't buy the prisoner of the moment analysis of people trying to devalue him because he just lost yet another playoff round, because we've seen him be brilliant in the playoffs. We saw him run out of time. In fact, the playoff overtime format changed because of the loss at KC and how well he played, how well the Bills team played. And man, they just came up short. And in this particular case, say the loss against, the Bengals that year, I can understand that. This doesn't quite feel like that Bengals loss, though. This doesn't quite feel like other losses that you can look at, or even the interceptions, because he didn't have any turnovers this game. Because one of the reasons why I picked KC, I did pick KC for the game, by the way, and not because I didn't think that Josh was capable. I thought that there were certain parts that he would turn the football over, that would put Kansas City in a position with short fields, and Mahomes being Mahomes in the playoffs, winning 13 games already in his young illustrious career. I thought that would be the difference, because if I'm going to be an analyst, which I am, and I'm not a sports fan, so that's the difference between most people and me. Not arrogant, I'm just saying I come from a different angle. I'm just going to tell the truth. My job as your sports pastor is to tell you the truth. My job as your sports pastor, or even a sports prophet, not critic, but a prophet, is to tell you if your team is good and if your team is bad. And sometimes my prophecies and my predictions, sometimes they don't always align.